Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Egypt and the Nile pre-trip webinar today. We're going to be sharing with you all that you need to know for your upcoming trip. I'm very excited for you to join your host, Eunice, who I'll introduce formally in just a moment, and for you to find out all of the wonders of Egypt and the incredible Nile Valley that you're going to be cruising down in just about a month's time. So we will start at 11 a.m. Eastern time, so in about 3 minutes. I see a number of you have joined in already. Thanks for joining us this morning. And yeah, just bear with us for a second while we get your host Eunice on board. And there he is. Good.
Hello.
Good afternoon to Cairo.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Okay.
It's almost very dark over here.
Yeah, exactly, and it's middle of the night here in Thailand. So, as I say, we will get started at 11 o'clock. We're just waiting for a few more folks to join. So, a warm welcome. I can say warm because it's warm here in Thailand. It's probably pretty warm in Cairo. Is it, Eunice?
Well, it's in the 20s, so it's pretty good.
Ah, perfect.
I'm
Sounds
a little
great. We won't
so
we won't ask our members back in Canada how it is. That would be just unfair in February. Anyway, we won't say anything more about that. So once again, welcome to everyone who's just joined us. This is your pre-trip webinar for your Egypt and the Nile program happening in wow, just about 3 weeks time. You're already going to be over there. And as I say, we will give you some guidance as to everything you need to know for the trip starting in just under a minute. So do bear with us while your fellow participants log on. As I say, we will get started in a moment and share with you all there is to know about getting ready for your trip to Egypt in a month's time. Yeah, a few more people have joined. Good morning, everyone. I see a few familiar names from past trips. So hello to all of you who I have met before. And I'm delighted to see a few names that I know you'll meet on the trip and share stories from past adventures and hopefully say nice things about me. Just kidding. And yeah, as I say, we're just waiting for the clock to strike 11 and then we will start right on time because it looks like almost everybody is here who has signed up for the trip. So yeah, I see it's now 11 o'clock in Toronto, 8 o'clock out on the west coast of Canada. So for wherever you are, welcome to our Wheel and Anchor pre-trip webinar for our trip to Egypt in the Nile. It's time to get started. I expect this will take about 30 minutes or so. Today, first of all, let me give you a rough overview of what we're going to cover. I'd like to introduce in just a moment your host for the trip. We'll talk a little bit about what you need to prepare, what's going to happen when you arrive into Cairo, and we will give a brief overview of the itinerary and anything that you might need to know. We're not going to go through it in great detail. You've obviously already informed yourself on the basis of our original itinerary and the documentation you will have gotten from our office, and then we'll answer any questions. That's obviously an important part of the trip. So if you do have questions, please, you can type them into the Q&A section of the Zoom webinar. If you don't see that on your screen, you might have to scroll a little bit down or a little bit up. You can put it into the chat box or into the Q&A box, and we will address all the questions at one time at the Q&A section at the end. So first of all, I am absolutely delighted to introduce your Wheel and Anchor host and Egyptologist guide, Mohammed Yunus, who has joined us here today from Cairo and who's going to be taking around this incredible country. And I'll let him say a few words about himself. But we first met a few years ago on a Wheel and Anchor trip before COVID, I guess it was, wasn't it, Yunus?
yes.
And in fact, it was the last trip before COVID. We went to Egypt and then COVID came. Yeah, exactly. But we had an incredible time. And I'll tell you, people really, really, really enjoyed learning all about Egyptian history and culture from Yunus. So I will stop talking now. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you just introduce yourself and just say a few words about yourself and what you do?
Well, my name is Mohammed Yunus. I'm one of millions of Muhammads all over the Middle East. So please do call me Yunus. This is what everybody calls me with. I've studied at the Faculty of Tourism and Hotels. It's a 4-year course to study in university about Egyptian history. And I've been working as a host and a guide for almost, uh, can you still hear me?
We sure can. We hear you perfectly.
Okay, I lost the screen, but I'll carry
That's
on
okay. We can
talking.
see and we can hear
Okay,
you.
I've been working as a Egyptologist and as a guide for almost 30 years, and I do have the pleasure to be your inside guide for this fascinating tour that we'll be doing, inshallah, on the Nile in the within 3 weeks from now.
Eunice, 30 years you're dating yourself because he started when he was 10. Okay.
Oh,
In any event, you're going to have a great time with Eunice. You're going to learn a lot, not just
Mhm.
about the incredible history of the Nile Valley and everything that has to offer, but also about, the current affairs, what's happening in Egypt. So I'm sure he's going to enlighten you as to what life in Egypt is all about. So let's get into the nitty gritty. And first of all, in the first part of our webinar is just talk about what you need for the trip. And so, of course, you need your passport. That goes without saying. And by now, I imagine you will have all obtained your Egyptian visa. As you well know from my memos and from the media, that the whole Egyptian visa thing has been a bit of a hassle. On behalf of the Canadian and Egyptian governments, I'm sorry about that. It's unnecessary that it should be like that, but anyway, it's all politics is all I can say. But hopefully you've successfully obtained that. I've gotten feedback from my team that a number of people have already confirmed that they did receive it. So I assume that won't be a problem, even though it was certainly a bit of a nightmare. So make sure you obviously have a copy of that visa in hand. And I would also take a copy of your passport, like stick it into your suitcase somewhere and make a photo on your phone. It's always good to have that documentation copied just in case something should happen. But apart from that, that's all you need to enter Egypt. If you've got your passport, your visa, do me a favor though, please double check the information on your visa. I'm sure it's was all submitted correctly, but double check everything. We have unfortunately had situations in recent months where folks applied for the visa, and then there was a mistake, and then they had a real hassle at the border. And there's nothing we can do about it. So just have another quick check and make sure everything is filled in correctly, I's dotted and T's crossed. So once you've done all that, then it'll be making sure that you have the right attire for this program. And Eunice, you can elaborate with me on this one, but basically the bottom line is you want to pack, like we say on all trips, in layers. You don't need a ton of clothes. The attire is casual. Obviously, we are on our own tahabia, our own yacht on the Nile, so you're just amongst yourselves. So you don't need any fancy clothes. I know some of you are attending the afternoon tea at the Cataract Hotel in Aswan. You may want to have a little something nicer for that, but it's really not required. Comfort is the order of the day. It's going to be warm, probably in the 20s, wouldn't you say, Eunice, during the day? Maybe a
At
bit
20s.
cooler at night. Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe a cardigan.
Mm.
Let's go ahead, Eunice. I'll let you elaborate.
No. I mean, the weather would change, so it's quite cold in the morning by sunrise, and afterwards it's gonna warm up, and then immediately after sunset there will be like 10 degrees drop in temperature. So you have to be always prepared for the change in the weather with layers, as you just said.
And
Please.
it's a good point because we do go out early in the morning. And I remember this from our trip with Eunice previously. He's going to wake you up early. Why? Because you want to get to some of these sites. I think in particular about the Valley of the Kings, and I think about, the temple at Karnak Temple, all of them really. You want to get ahead of the crowds. It makes such a difference. So it means getting up a little bit earlier in the morning, which means, tucking in maybe a little earlier at night, but it is absolutely worth it because it does get quite busy. And so being early in the morning, as Eunice just mentioned, it's going to be cool. Not to mention that one of the things we'll talk about in a few minutes is there will be maybe an opportunity to go for a hot air balloon ride in Luxor over the Valley of the Kings, which again, I remember when we attempted to do it on the trip that I went with Eunice a few years ago. We were unfortunately foiled by the winds that canceled the trip. But should that be possible, I do remember it was chilly in the morning. It was definitely in the low double digits. So having something, you don't need a lot of that stuff, but at least something that's going to keep you warm for those early mornings or late evenings. Shoes, footwear is important. Obviously, there's a lot of walking on this trip across these temples and through all of these ancient sites, which means somewhat. I mean, listen, this is set up for tourists, so everything is as comfortable to walk on as possible. But I think it's still advisable for shoes, closed toe sandals, because it's rocks and rubble and this and that and the other thing. So I think that's important as well. And the other thing we were talking about, right, Eunice, is sun protection.
Yep.
The sun is strong, right? So please, hat, sunglasses, sunscreen. I mean, it's maybe one of those things that goes without saying, but I think it's important to mention. Eunice, just remind us again, you and I were talking earlier today about, the temples and all the rest of it. You're saying there's no special requirement as it relates to, women having to cover up for any of the temples or anything that we're visiting. There's no extra special requirements there. Is that right?
Not really, no, no. I mean, going sightseeing when we are in Cairo, going around the pyramids, any of the sites we're going to do is absolutely no restrictions, for ladies, to wear whatever they want. Just maybe going to the market in Aswan, that I would
Right.
recommend like long trousers, like half sleeve is absolutely fine. But as I said, when we are on the boat, when we are in an actual tour sightseeing in a bus, that's absolutely no problem. So yeah, the hat, sunglasses, flat, comfortable shoes, and you can wear, as I said, whatever you want to wear. That's absolutely fine in any of the sites.
Exactly.
Definitely
So
on the boat.
yeah, and on the boat is casual, and you shouldn't really need a lot of stuff for this trip. But nevertheless, I want to just remind you that on the domestic flights within Egypt, you have a checked baggage allowance of 23 kilograms, which for most people is what you have as a baggage allowance traveling transatlantic anyway. But in case you're normally a heavy traveler, we just want to make you aware of that. If I were you, I would be taking a lot less, because you're going to want to buy things along the way. There's just cool things to buy in Egypt. So I would say fill it half full and leave lots of room for souvenirs, in whatever shape or form that you might find them. Listen, some of the other things that you should remember on the trip: obviously bring a travel adapter. They use the European style of plugs, isn't that right, Eunice? These ones down
Yep.
here with the double round pins
Mhm.
at 230 volts. So again, same as Europe, which means most of your appliances are going to work without needing a voltage adapter. You just need the plug, and most ordinary electronics will work on dual voltage. If you do have anything special, it's been mentioned to me by some of our women members that sometimes hair straighteners or curling irons or this kind of thing may be single voltage only. So if there's anything like that you're planning on bringing, you just might want to double check the voltage on that, and in which case you would need an actual voltage converter that changes the voltage. But mostly we find that's not necessary. Please do bring your mobile phone. Whether or not you choose to get a SIM card locally is entirely up to you. If you are somebody who is a frequent internet user and you need to be online for whatever reason, you can pick up a SIM card. You, of course, can avail yourself of the Canadian roaming packages, which quite honestly, I'll be blunt, I think they are ridiculous in terms of cost, because you could pick up a SIM card at the airport in Cairo for about $20, so about the same price as you pay for one day of roaming with our mobile carriers in Canada. You can get a card that lasts you for the whole time. And so, yeah, that's entirely up to you. There is Wi-Fi certainly in all the hotels, as well as on board the Dahabia. I am mentioned, Eunice, you said to me that the reception on the Wi-Fi on the vessels in the Nile is generally not that good. Yeah.
Exactly. In the hotel, that would be absolutely no problem because it's
Yeah.
landlines, it's very fast. However, when we go on board, especially when we are cruising, the signal is not very good and it's all mobile internet Wi-Fi service. So
Right.
uh, yeah, so it won't be that great, I would say, especially when we are cruising. So I would say once you arrive, please tell the representative at the airport that you would like to have a SIM card if you are planning to get an Egyptian line, because this is the best place to get them from the airport upon arrival. With your passport, just
Exactly.
pay it and get, like 30 gig or something like this for, not a lot at all. So that will cover you with
Exactly.
all.
That'll cover you. That'll make it easy, and then you don't have to go hunting around Cairo looking for a SIM card. So do keep that in mind. And as Eunice has mentioned to the representative that picks you up at the airport, just a couple of other things to remember. Please take copies of if you are taking prescription medication, take copies of that. Or a same thing again, make a photo of it and put it on your phone. Although a printed copy would be better just in case. It does happen that we find that people put their prescription medication into their checked luggage, and that if it gets lost, there's a problem. So we just wanted you to be covered in that regard. What Another thing that you suggested, Eunice, was if you enjoy a little tipple, sort of before dinner in the afternoon, by way of a gin and tonic or something like that. If you are somebody that's partial to a little cocktail, um, imported alcohol is very, very expensive in Egypt. And so I think, Eunice, you were saying you can buy that at duty free, obviously before you leave Canada or on arrival. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's easier if you have time to spare at the airport, just buy it from Canada, or any transit you're doing on the way. However, you can still buy it here from the duty-free shop in Cairo, because once you go out, you cannot, and it's really very, very expensive. Like a gin and tonic will cost you in the Mina house like $30, $35, which is a lot of, but you can buy a
Which
whole
is
bottle for that.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. There is also wine,
So
there is a little beer, which is fine and reasonably priced, but imported alcohol is extremely very, very expensive. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So there's the tip for you, duty free for those that wish. And uh, yeah, that's for that. And I think that's pretty much it in terms of things that you really should know about. But if you have any other questions, please let us know and we'll address those at the end. Let's talk about currency for a second. Currency in Egypt, the Egyptian pound, although US dollars are quite widely accepted in markets and stuff like that. Is that right?
Yes, yes. And it's 1 to 30 now. This is the exchange rate that you get in a bank here. So one US dollar is equivalent to about 30 Egyptian pounds. So
So there you
basically,
go.
yeah, 100 Egyptian pounds, that's $3. And
$3
it's,
US. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that'd be like $4 Canadian roughly.
Okay.
Uh, so, so that being said, don't if you have US dollars already, great. Um, Small denominations is obviously better. $1 bills, because a lot of the bartering that you might do with some of the vendors will be in small denominations. But if you don't have them, please don't go out and get US dollars, because you can just as easily use your ATM card in Egypt. You ATM machines are ubiquitous, and you can get out Egyptian pounds, take a couple $100, or whatever you might need. Obviously, most things are covered on our program. There's the odd meal that is on your own account, but we've covered the gratuities for when you're on tour with us, as well as all the meals on the Dalabia and so on and so forth. So, and you can pay for other things in shops and restaurants using your credit card. So it's not like you need tons of cash, but however, if you are somebody that likes trinkets along the way in the markets, you're going to need a little bit of cash. As far as cards are concerned, as most of you who have listened to my webinars before or traveled with us, we strongly recommend using a Wise card. This is a prepaid international Visa card that you can have 50 currencies on. You load it up with Canadian dollars, and you can spend at exchange rates that are far better than any bank in Canada. So those members who have gotten Wise cards have come back and thanked me profusely because it's such a wonderful way of exchanging currency. So if you haven't gotten it, there's a link in your pre-trip information document on how to get the Wise card if you haven't already. Also, we use Telegram. So we are using modern technology for communications with our guests. And this is the application which, if you've ever used WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, it's basically the same thing, just with a different label on it. And so I won't go into the reasons why we use Telegram, other than it just really suits us very well. And our members that have become accustomed to it are very, very happy with it. Please follow the instructions, download the app, get it all set up before you leave Canada, for a couple of reasons. One, if you're less tech savvy, you might struggle with it in country. And so we just, you know, it's just way better if it's all set up and running. If you have a problem with it, as I always like to say, just consult a member of the next generation down, and they will have the thing set up for you and up running in a flash. It's really very simple. And Eunice will be communicating advice to you via Telegram periodically throughout the trip to let you know what's going to come up for the following day, anything you need to remember, and specifically if there's any changes to the program. So even if you don't get a SIM card, obviously wherever you have Wi-Fi, you'll be able to access Telegram, and also to send him a message. And very importantly, and I'll elaborate on this in a moment, if you have a delay en route, you can send a message to Eunice directly and let him know, so that we can make sure that your driver is there to meet you with your revised flight time. So Telegram, get it all set up. I just want to touch on health protocols. There's really only two things I want to mention here. First of all, our trips are non-smoking. If you are a smoker, by all means, you can smoke. But please, if you're in the confines of the other Wheel and Anchor members, obviously the majority of our members are non-smokers. So out of respect for others, please refrain from smoking within the group. And I will say about smoking, though, Eunice and I were chatting earlier, people do smoke in Egypt, right?
It's a smoking culture, you know. I think it's a Middle Eastern and Mediterranean thing, you know. So quite a lot do
Yeah.
smoke.
Yeah, so if you're out and about somewhere in the market and so on, and you sit down for coffee, and don't be surprised if if a bunch of Egyptian men sit down at a table next to you and all light up a cigarette. So I always like to mention that, because as Canadians, we've become, myself included, we've all become a little bit like afraid of the cigarette smoke. But it's you can't avoid it when you're out and about. And they do have, obviously, in the hotels and all the rest of it, it's non-smoking. But it's just when you're out at cafes and so on is when I find it can be something that that can bother people. The other thing I want to mention about health protocols is, if at any time during the trip you should develop a symptom like a sneeze or a cough or you know, any other symptom of anything, first of all, please inform Eunice. And secondly, we kindly ask that you wear a mask. I know we're all way over wearing masks, but simply, particularly on this trip, because we are on a dahabia, so we are in close confines for a week, just out of respect for your fellow members. If you are feeling at all ill, have any symptoms, please wear a mask for that time, just so that we can play it on the safe side. I think that's all I need to say about that. I want to touch briefly on safety and security, not because this is a topic, actually, and Eunice, I'd just like you to explain sort of how safe it actually is in Egypt, despite all of the media we hear about the Middle East, which is not affecting Egypt. But the only thing to mention is, like you would in any major city anywhere, being wary about pickpockets and not bringing valuables with you, particularly when you're out traveling around. You don't need to bring your passport. You can put it in the safe at the hotel, same thing on the boat. Yeah, and what else would you say that, is there anything else that people should be aware of, other than to reiterate how safe it actually is in Egypt?
You know, the thing is, I know exactly what the media is mirroring, you know, what's happening in the Middle East, you know, and you know, a lot of people, and I heard this from people who have already took the risk, you know, at that, you know, at their own mind, you know, at coming to Egypt, and they told me that we thought, you know, we'll be coming in the middle of a war zone, and you know what? They came, they spent a whole 15 days, 12 days touring around Egypt. There's absolutely nothing. We are far away from any trouble which is
Yeah.
happening in Gaza or Israel. So We are way, I mean, and a lot actually told me by the end of this trip that they felt actually safer here in Egypt than back home in the States. They told me that, they feel safe in Egypt. They are, Egyptians are very welcoming people. They are very, I mean, if you just stand and talk to anyone, everyone will talk to you and give you advice. If you got lost somewhere, everyone will give.
Yeah.
So, safety wise, it's absolutely fine. Everything
Yeah.
is, very stable here. And as I said, just every now and about, them just trying to sell you stuff, this is like what they will be doing, which is, trying to
That's
make a living that, but apart from
Yeah,
this
that's the
safety.
thing yeah, it's completely safe, but that's the thing you should just be aware of as well is that the hawkers, the vendors are prolific and and they're tenacious, let's put it that way. So you just have to sort of politely um say no thank you and move on. And I think Eunice, your tip was always the thing to say is no thank you, not maybe later, because you don't want to get somebody's hopes up, because that just creates more harassment. And it's no thank you, and look the other way and move on, and it'll be fine. So listen, I don't think we need to say anything more about the issue. Let's move on and talk a little bit about what's going to happen on your arrival. Just to mention again, if you expect that you're going to be delayed, so please keep an eye on your email in the 24 hours prior to departure. This time of the year, we can have snowstorms and all kinds of fun stuff that can affect the flight schedules. If at some point you become aware that you are going to miss a connection and not be on the flight that you are scheduled to arrive on. So if you're flying, for example, from Toronto or Vancouver to Frankfurt and then connecting to Cairo, and you're going to miss that flight, then it's really, really important. We ask you to please send a Telegram message to Eunice so that he knows that you are not going to be on the flight that you're supposed to be on. If you're on the flight and the flight is an hour late, well, that's fine, because they will obviously be watching the flight times and they'll know that your flight is an hour late and they'll be there. But if you are going to miss a connection, please drop him a note so that we can make arrangements for that. I always recommend arrive at the airport early. A good book is the best. It's better to be, I always say it's better to be half an hour early than 1 minute late. And yeah, just be comfortable for the flight. We suggest, if you are somebody that is bothered by jet lag, let's face it, there is a 7-hour time difference between Eastern Standard Time in Egypt and obviously 10 if you're on the West Coast. Timeshifter.com, we put it in your pre-trip information documents, is a great jet lag app. It's like all of my hosts are using it now. Everybody is saying this is the way to help mitigate the effects of jet lag. So have a look at that. And drink lots of water on the plane. It's always tempting to drink wine, but hydration will give you a better sleep, and it will also help you adjust to the time difference. When you arrive into Cairo, you will be met by our local representative. There'll be somebody there, a driver with a with a sign with the Wheel and Anchor logo and your name on it. So keep an eye out for that. It can be fairly busy arriving in Cairo because there's flights coming from all over the world. It's a fairly large airport, but we will be there. And again, if you have any problem, you can send a message. You can log on to the airport Wi-Fi and send a message to Eunice if you have any trouble finding your driver. But generally speaking, that's not a problem. So once you arrive, you'll be whisked in to your hotel out in Giza by the pyramids to the Mina House, and you'll have a day to relax. And we'll cover that in a second. Just giving you the overview of the program that you've heard already. Obviously, you're going to spend the first few days in Cairo, exploring this amazing, gigantic, sprawling, frenetic city, seeing the pyramids of Giza, seeing the Egyptian Museum, seeing the garbage city, which we include in the program, and is always a highlight among our members, even though it's not included in most tours. Then we're going to fly down to Luxor and board our private dahabeah for 7 nights that will take us all the way up the Nile to as far as Aswan and the High Dam. A side trip for those that have booked it down to Abu Simbel, and then back to Luxor before flying back out to Cairo and home or onward from there. Let's just make a few notes about the itinerary. Eunice, in Cairo, as I mentioned, the day that you arrive, there's nothing really planned. Then we have 2 days. One day will be devoted to Cairo and the garbage city. And I think you were saying something about that. What might people expect, or how should they prepare themselves for that trip to this so-called garbage city, which is a remarkable place?
Nothing will prepare them, to, the garbage. Yeah, it's an experience. It's a lifetime experience because, well, we actually call it the garbage city because I would say 80% of the garbage of Cairo goes to that area where it would be recycled over there. There's a whole community of people,
Yeah,
manually recycling all the garbage
all
there.
done by hand.
Yeah, so we
Amazing.
would be going right in the heart of that, garbage city. And basically, we're going there not just to see the garbage city, but we're going to see an amazing church over there. Actually, the
Yeah,
largest church, what we have in Egypt, which got this most amazing also view of the city of Cairo from up there. So it's,
it's
yeah,
incredible.
experience, I'm sure, for
It's going to be
everybody.
an amazing day. The other day that we're in Cairo, we're going to be visiting, obviously, the pyramids of Giza, as well as Memphis and some other important sites, and also the Egyptian Museum. And just one thing to clarify on this point, the original Egyptian Museum, which is in the heart of Cairo, still houses the artifacts of Tutankhamun, yeah, of King Tut. Is that right?
Yeah. Actually, still the most important treasures from the collection of King Tut's treasures, like the mask, like the golden coffin, all the jewelry, quite the masterpieces, I would say, is still in the old Egyptian museum in the city center of Cairo, and this is what we're going to see. So you are not going to miss on seeing the treasures of King Tut. And also, we're going to combine this with the Garbage City, have lunch in a very nice park there. We're going to have our Pyramid Day. Cairo is going to be long days, but it's going to be awesome because we're trying to make the best out of this fascinating city. Also, another highlight is going and having a home hosted dinner in an Egyptian house, with an Egyptian
Oh,
family.
that's right. I forgot.
Yeah, which is
Yeah,
gonna be amazing, just going and dining with an Egyptian family, seeing how things were, are going, and talking to the family. So it's gonna be also another highlight for this tour.
indeed. I'm still in touch with the Egyptian family that we met when
Are
we
you?
visited there. It's yeah, I still am. It's remarkable. They're really such lovely people, and it's fantastic. After Cairo, we fly down to Luxor. We're going to chuck onto this beautiful, relatively new dahabeeyah. It was just completed at the end of COVID, and this is the way to travel down the Nile, as you well know. That's obviously why you've booked on with us on this program. This is privately chartered just for us, so it's just us, just wheel and anchor on board. There's a pool on top, lounge chairs, beautiful dining on board. It really, really is a lovely ship. Eunice is going to be with you on board along the whole way, explaining all the things that you see as we go along, and very comfortable accommodations. And as I say, the nice thing about it is it's small and it's intimate. And when I say small, I'll mention at this point, at the current time, we have 16 members on this trip. So you have a really intimate group. Perhaps we had a couple of cancellations at the end of last year. So if you have any friends that come along, we do have a cabin or two available. But at the moment, you're 16 people on this trip, and so this is going to be just marvelous. I think we wanted to mention at this point, so from Luxor, you're going to be visiting the Valley of the Kings, all of these sites. We're not going to go through the details on this pre-trip webinar. You've already read through it probably a dozen times by now. There may be an opportunity for an optional excursion here, Eunice. Is that right?
Yeah, well, maybe in Luxor, we can offer a hot air balloon ride, which is going to be amazing uh, tour. I mean, if you want to be just seeing all the great sights of the on the west bank of Luxor, and it's normally done by sunrise, so it's just awesome. The lighting is perfect. You get to see the Nile Valley and the vegetation, and it's a wonderful experience. So yeah, that's a trip that we can offer locally when you all arrive here. I'll tell you all the details you need to know about.
Exactly. So Eunice will let you know, but keep that in mind that hot air ballooning may be possible. It's obviously weather dependent, but for those that wish, wow, what an incredible way to see this incredible Valley of the Kings. Lots of sites that we're going to see. As I mentioned before, the tempo each day will be a fairly early morning start to visit the various towns, the temples that you're going to be passing by. We're going to be seeing some things like Jebel El Silsila, is that right? Which most of the ships can't stop at. Is that right? Because they don't they're too large, so they just don't have the ability to disembark so many people.
No, that's very true. All the big cruises, you're going to see like maybe 300 big boats. We're talking about, 70 cabin boats, cruising up and down the river. And actually, there's no docking area for them to be able to visit those tubes because of the Dahabiya and the small size of it. We are going to stop and actually visit the quarries where the ancient Egyptians. This is actually a quarry for sandstone. You can see the very sharp cuts in the photo. And as I said, it's another one of the least visited, but one of the most interesting sites you can visit in Luxor and Aswan.
And this is the beauty of the trip, because we're taking you to some of the things that are just not part of the normal trips. And when we get to Aswan, there'll be a ride on a felucca, the sailing ships that are around, that have been sailing up and down the Nile for ages and ages and ages. And we'll experience the city of Aswan. As you mentioned, it's at this point that we'll go to the market. A few of the members have signed up for an afternoon tea at the Cataract Hotel, which is an icon of hospitality along the Nile. And some folks have joined on for our Abu Simbel excursion that you're going to be hosting, Eunice, flying down to Abu Simbel to see this incredible. This was one of those things that I'm glad that I did when I went there, because you're really not sure, why am I flying all the way down to the bottom end of Egypt to see these statues? Well, it's a lot more to it than that, isn't that right?
Yeah, because this is just the facade of the temple. The temple itself goes for almost 70 meters. That's 210 feet, right in the heart of this
Into the
mountain.
middle. Yeah.
And it's amazing carvings and Ramesses II bragging about his campaigns, the scenes. I mean, those are 60-foot high statues that you're looking at right
Yeah.
now. It's just awesome, just to see not only one temple, but two, because another one, remember, is for his wife, Queen Nefertari, just at the side, which is also a beautiful temple.
Which is also next door. And then, of course, for me, I'm always fascinated by engineering, but the fact that this temple was rebuilt block by block after they dammed up Lake Nasser to create the Aswan High Dam. Anyway, we'll tell you all about that. You'll get back to Luxor to visit the Karnak Temple. Is it right that if for some reason we're not able to do the hot air ballooning on the way down, you may be able to do it on the end of the cruise and on the last morning in Luxor? Is that right?
Yeah, we can do it either in the 2 days we're spending in Luxor. So yeah, it's very doable.
Exactly. Just one thing that struck me now that I wanted to mention. The days are as spaced out as we can make them in terms of the pace. An early morning start, usually back to the boat in time for lunch. Then there's some time for cruising, relaxing in the middle of the day when it's a lot warmer outside. That being said, we do have a pace to keep up. And so in the interest of all of the members, if anyone is not able to sort of keep up with the pace of the group, and it's not like we're in a hurry. It's a very leisurely pace. But it'll be arranged by Eunice for those that are, and in some cases there's steps to walk up, or to go down into a temple. It might be going down. So to the extent that there's anyone is a bit challenged, we'll definitely welcome to follow along. But there may be spots where you sort of stop and take a rest, and Eunice will facilitate that brilliantly. So that the rest of the group can keep up. But again, we've generally not had an issue with that, because we're not in a hurry and we're leaving early so that we can take our time throughout the trip. And so after 7 nights, you'll be end up back in Luxor, and then fly back to Cairo for one final night up at the airport, and then flying onwards or back home from there. So that is the overview of the program. I see a bunch of questions have come in. So Eunice, let's take a moment and try to answer those questions. So First of all, we have a question about if there's washing facilities along the trip. Yes, there are laundry facilities on board the Dahabia. They do, the information that we have is that it takes 1 to 2 days to process that. So keep that in mind. But yes, there is laundry. And of course, the hotels have that facility as well. So that's helpful that you don't have to take literally clothes for the entire trip, but rather you can wash them along the way. Is there wine available on board? By all means. They have a decent selection of wine. I mean, maybe not the finest vintages, but you have a fully stocked bar that's available on board, obviously at your expense. There's a wine list there. Eunice, you mentioned wine and beer are generally fairly reasonably priced. I mean, if
Oh,
you go for
they are
expensive,
actually pretty good. No, no, I've
yeah,
been told, I mean, if you asked me this question maybe 15 years ago, I would have just told you to bring your own wine. But like 15 years ago, oh, really, a French company actually took over the wine industry here, and they started to produce very, very nice, very good wine. So local wine, it's absolutely fine. This is what I've been told. I do drink, but I mean, I've been told that the wine is absolutely fine. Also, the beer is very nice beer that they make. There's one called Sakara beer. They do Stella as well. So this is very reasonably priced. You're going to find them on the boat in the hotel. However, if you are ordering again hard liquor like gin and tonic, like if you order French wine, it will cost you maybe $150, in the hotel in the Mina house. So you have to be always making sure that you're looking at the wine list, okay, and the prices
yeah,
before. That would be very,
before
very
ordering. Exactly, because yeah, the wine list has a wide range of prices. There's a question here about if there's a black market for Egyptian pounds. No, I don't think there's a black market for Egyptian pounds. It is an openly traded currency, so it's not like Argentina. The exchange rate is the exchange rate, sort of no matter what. So therefore, yeah, you just use the ATM. There's no black market. As it were,
The best way is ATM upon arrival. There's ATMs at the hotel. There's an ATM as well. Also, if you try to change to like Canadian dollars it's better off to do it from the banks here in Egypt because you get a
yeah,
better exchange rate locally than definitely from the airport because the airport would give you like half the price. But so I would say just leave any foreign currency you have or cash to just change it locally here or to get a local currency from an ATM.
yes, whatever you do, don't try to do it in Canada. First of all, it'll be very difficult to find and you'll get a terrible exchange rate. So I never suggest people change money in Canada, or certainly not to anything other than US dollars. We have a question here from Terry. They're arriving a day early, and he's asking if it's safe to stroll around Giza on their own, looking like a tourist, stopping at a cafe, etc., etc. I think the answer is yes, but maybe you could just qualify that, Eunice.
Yeah, well, I think there's like five of us will be arriving a day earlier, and maybe I'll discuss it with the company that we can offer maybe a tour or something like this if you're interested to see another sort of highlight of the city of Cairo because you came earlier, you have a whole day,
Yep.
so we'll see what's the best thing to arrange
But
and.
if they decide they just want to sort of catch some fresh air and stroll around, my recollection is that it's absolutely no problem.
Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. If you want to go, you can just pick up a taxi and he'll take you to the city center of Cairo if you yeah. So I mean that's no problem. And it's again very safe to do so.
It's very safe to do so. I will say that my recollection is that in the immediate area around the Mino house in Giza, there isn't a ton of stuff to do. It's quite local. So sure, there's some cafes and restaurants, but there's not a lot to see. And so, as Eunice mentioned, by all means, you could hop a taxi and go down to, downtown Cairo, where you can also walk around without any problem at all.
Mm.
It's really a remarkably safe place, despite what one might otherwise think. We have a question about what your Telegram info is. It is in the pre-trip information document that you were sent. Do you know offhand what your Telegram address is? Eunice, I can't access it without.
I think if you just look by but the phone number, I think you can have access to it directly. So if you just type my phone number, which is I think it's on the list, I will type the phone number here.
Okay.
You can look me up.
Eunice's, yeah, what I'll do is I'll type it in the chat box here. Eunice's Telegram username, which is Eunice underscore WA. Oops, I put it in the wrong. 1 second, I'll type it to everyone here at Eunice. So if you type in this username if you search for that uh, in your Telegram, you'll find Eunice, and drop him a note, say hello, make sure that he knows that you have connected with him. Judy asks about the cost of the hot air balloon ride. We discussed this before. It is a bit of a fluctuating number. And I wasn't actually able to get a firm answer about what the current rate is. My guess is it's around $500 US, plus or minus sort of $50. It's sort of in that range. And so obviously they'll let you know, if it is going to be possible. Eunice will let you know exactly what that number is, and I'm sure, Eunice, it's payable by credit card. It's not
Oh
like they
yeah,
have to pay cash for it. Yeah.
yeah. And also, but just regarding the Telegram, there's already some of you who already have sent me a hi, and that is great. I would just say that for those who haven't sent me a hi, or on the Telegram, please do. And I will start actually on a channel, okay, a channel for all of us. And on this channel, I will be writing down the program in instructions. This is a one-way thing, so I'll be writing down the program, what to expect, what to bring, what to leave, tips, for you for the next, what's happening on the next day. And then if you have any questions whatsoever, you can just write me individually and I will answer you back. Otherwise, I'm going to also start a group chat, okay, where you can all post pictures if you want to talk to each other, if you want to know what's happening, as I said, that will be for the whole group. So I would please just drop me a line on Telegram and we can start this. And as soon as I get a, solid figure for the balloon ride, I'll post it on the Telegram channel.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds like a plan. While we're on the note of Telegram, there was one other question here about using the location function on Telegram. Listen, if you have difficulties with Telegram, with any of the functionality, first of all, if you simply Google it or you go to YouTube, is even better. You can get pretty much instructions on how to access any functionality by simply typing into Google, how do I use Telegram? How do I use location on Telegram? You can find all of that instructions online, or in the worst case, ask, as I say, a friend or a family member of a younger generation. If you go to any 16-year-old, they'll be able to give you a tutorial on Telegram much faster than we can. So, but it's very easy to find out the instructions on that. Terry asked the question about, is it possible to make a last-minute decision to fly to Abu Simbel while on the tour? That's a bit of a tougher one because it is a fairly popular attraction, and that the flight is generally full. So odds are against it. I mean, never say never, but it's I would say the odds are less than 50-50 of being able to make a last minute decision to do that excursion. Would you say anything different than that, Eunice?
No, I totally agree with you, and it's a shame going to Aswan, okay, and not going and seeing Abu Simbel is like coming to Cairo and not going and seeing the pyramids. This
Right.
highlight,
Yeah, good
literally.
analogy.
Oh yeah, exactly. So Abu Simbel, trust me, you won't regret it. It's the most remarkable temples you'll ever see. Maybe not only in Egypt, in the entire world, and it's definitely worth the journey. So the
Yeah,
problem
so
with the flight, if it is a bus, we could have added, another one, but with the plane, if it is a full plane, it would be kind of sad,
you're
because you have to
yeah, you're
also
out of
take
luck.
the same plane with us. You cannot take another plane, because I'm obviously going to be taking the rest of the group. So I would say the
Yeah,
sooner the
exactly.
better.
And we have specific times there when we can fly, and it's not like there's that many flights going to Abu Simbel. So So yeah, so again, if you research it, have a look. If you really think you're interested to do it, we do suggest that you sign up in advance. Question here from Sharon about eating with the host family. How should our members dress to show respect to the family and the culture? Any particular things that you might suggest? I recall our members on the last trips, they dressed up a little bit like you were going over to a friend's house, but you don't certainly need to overdo it, right? I mean, I also wouldn't show up in a tank top and a mini skirt, but our members don't generally dress like that anyway. I would say just, normal, respectful, modestly. You also don't want to dress, all in a, sequin gown from Cartier from head to toe. That would be inappropriate as well. So modest and ordinary, dress like a Canadian would. I mean, they kind of want to see us in our own skin, as it were, and not anything different than that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. Just be comfortable, something, you're comfortable with. And as I said, it's a nice, they would be also in a casual like shirt and trousers. They're not gonna dress up or anything like that. So just whatever feels yeah, be comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. We have a question here about from Lenny and Gordon about the new Grand Egyptian Museum. Are they able to visit it? Eunice, you can elaborate. The new Grand Egyptian Museum is not officially open to the public, as I understand it.
Well, actually, it's almost finished, but there's like, the final touches, and I don't know why we were supposed to open like 2 years ago, but sadly, it's not yet open. However, there is special small areas that you can have access to. So you can actually go uh, get a ticket. And this is one of the things for those who are arriving early that you can do, because it's very close to the Mina House Hotel. So it's like maybe 10 minutes drive, less than that. You can go get a ticket. You go inside the main building. There's an obelisk of Ramesses II that you can see in the open court. Then you make your way inside. You will have a look at another big statue of Ramesses II. There is few statues, and now they opened something which we call the Grand Staircase, where there's like, I would say, 30, 35 statues, which is on display in that staircase. But the actual museum is closed. It's not open yet. But this is just to give people a glimpse of how it's going to be. And also, there's a group of restaurants inside where you can just, after having a look at those statues on the outside of the main museum itself, you can just sit and have a meal or lunch over there. So it's a nice, easy
Exactly.
thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those arriving early, you've got a bit of extra time. As Eunice says, it is in Giza. It's in the neighborhood of the hotel, so one could do that. But we didn't put it in the program because it's more important to see the collection that is at the original Egyptian Museum, because that is the collection that is the one that everybody wants to see. So we will see that as part of our program. And good. And I think that answers the question. So I'll say going once, going twice. If anybody else has a question, let us know. But otherwise, you can obviously email Paula or Barb, whoever got you signed up for a trip. If there's any other question that pops up between now and the trip, you can, of course, also, if you have a local question for Eunice, you can drop him a Telegram message once you've got that sorted out and you'd said hello. He is very generous with his time and with our guests to answer any questions that you might have. But otherwise, as it relates to the travel arrangements or anything like that, please reach out to Paul or Barb and they will answer your questions. So on that note, I want to wish you all an amazing time in Egypt. I know that this trip blew me away, made, as I say, mostly because of the incredible stories that Eunice will tell about Egypt. By all means, do some reading if you wish beforehand. Challenge his knowledge. I challenge you to challenge his knowledge. And I know a few of our members did, but I can tell you right now, he'll win. And most importantly, he will leave you with a lasting impression of Egypt and all of these magnificent historic sites that are some of the best that humankind knows. So, Eunice, thank you for your time. And say a final word to our members before you see them at the Mina House in a month's time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just want to reassure that I'm going to be around at all times from day one, from your arrival to the hotel. I'm going to be with you all days. I'll be going to be explaining not just about the temples and the sites, but about the culture, about the Nile, about the beauty of the Nile Valley, about the customs. I'm going to throw a lot of things in this trip, that, is not there, but it's going to be all small, amazing experiences which will add up to a great holiday. So I'm so looking forward to see you in Cairo. And please, if you have any questions, drop me a line. If you cannot just sort out the Telegram thing, send me a regular text or WhatsApp. I'm on WhatsApp. I'm here to help. And as I said, I'm so looking forward to meet all of you in 3 weeks' time from now. So thank
Fantastic. Thank you again, Eunice. Have everybody have yourself a wonderful day and a fantastic trip in Egypt. Bye-bye.
you.